Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm excited because I've been planting iris.
Oh, okay.
And of course, August and first part of September is iris planting time, either digging, dividing. But I bought some new ones. There are a couple of good iris specialty mail order companies that have really good high quality iris. And so I shopped online, and because I wanted more yellow and a couple of really good purple ones. So I ordered, and I actually got those planted already.
Okay.
So I'm excited. So investment for next growing season. Next June, I hope to see these blooming.
Here we are, late summer, and you're still doing some planting.
Yes, exactly. And, iris are so nice. They're so carefree. Every 5 years or so, divide what you've got, but then you get more of them. So I love iris. And of course, this is the time.
So heading into the Labor Day weekend, do you have a lot of yard and garden chores or things that you'll be doing?
Well, it's been hot and dry. The weeds have flourished. I need to do some weed preparation, weed removal, because I know there are a few weeds that have kind of snuck into things, and I see some producing seed heads, and that's a no-no, because then that means next year there's going to be 1,000 seeds where 1,000 plants where there was only one before. And so I need to do some closer weed control. But I tell you, John, with as hot and dry as it's been across much of the region, when I've been planting those iris, it has been a job. Even under the shredded wood mulch, that ground is hard, really hard. Of course, in the Red River Valley here, we struggle with this heavy clay, and it's heavy and hard. And so I amended with peat moss, and I'll keep our fingers crossed that they do well.
Well, I know usually around Labor Day, it's a good time to look at fertilizing your yard, fertilizing your lawn, but maybe this year we're going to have to do things a little different, and we're going to talk about that later on the show. But first, you've got a question from a listener.
Yes, an email from Matt. Matt writes, I love listening to you and John every week. Having worked in garden centers, greenhouses, and nurseries throughout my 20s, I certainly agree with your advice. I live just outside of Philadelphia in Zone 7B. I'd like to ask two questions. First, I have an olive tree in a pot on my patio. I've had it for 3 years now. Due to the hot, steamy weather this summer, it's put on quite a bit of new growth. I figure it may need some pruning. When would be a good time to prune it? My second question is this. What I've been doing over the winters is bringing it into my unheated basement, watering it very sparsely, keeping it under a grow light. It's worked so far, but is this a good thing to continue? I worry about the plant dying in the frost and ice if I left it outdoors. Is this a good thing that I've been doing to continue? Thanks for any olive advice you could send my way. Please also thank John for all of his advice. From Matt.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Yes, well, thank you.
Nice to have a listener in Philadelphia.
Yes, very much. And count the day lost, you don't learn something new. I have never seen an olive growing in a pot. So thank you, Matt, for sending the beautiful photo of that olive. And so when I look at the plant, there are different things, kind of called olive. There's a Russian olive tree, and, the olive can be kind of a nickname, but.
Yeah, the Russian olive tree that we have around here doesn't produce fruit, does it?
No, exactly. Yep. Produce a little hard seed, but yeah, it's not really an olive as we think of. But Matt's olive in a pot here, when I look at it and examine, that's the real thing, the thing that in the Mediterranean climates would produce the olives. I love olives.
Really long, straight branches.
And yes, and it's growing very beautifully, fairly dense branches, not leggy or spindly, but quite nice. But I can see that it's put out a lot of new growth. So if this is on a patio, and with as hot and steamy as it's been across the country this year, I bet it thinks it's in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And so no wonder it's growing well. So to suggest the pruning of it, normally for most kind of woody type plants, and where this is native growing, it would be a tree. tree or large shrubby tree at any rate. So the timing for most woody plants is in spring. So even though this is being kept in a basement under lights, I would still wait until spring when it kind of senses that you're going to be moving it outdoors to the patio, and I would prune at that time. If you need to do a little shaping so it fits under your lights and in your basement, well, then go ahead. But for most of the pruning, I would wait until next spring. And again, Matt indicates he's in zone 7B. I had to look up the winter hardiness of an olive tree, and zone 7 is borderline. They're more comfortable in 8 or 9 or 10, warmer zones. And so I think he's wise to keep this in his basement during the wintertime. Otherwise, a person could risk losing it.
He really has done a great job of caring for that tree, hasn't he? And
yes.
To show the dedication of, that's a pretty big tree, to bring it inside and out of his basement, that's pretty impressive. I'm not sure if he's able if it's a walk-in basement or what it is, but that's quite a job he's done, and that's to be commended.
Yes, and so when I investigated the hardiness and found that it's a zone 7 is a little borderline, my sources indicated that it could be planted in zone B with protection. So if a person does get weary of bringing this in and out, or if it gets too large, a person could plant it out and give it good protection. Now, of course, an olive tree in our zones 3 and 4 across North Dakota and Minnesota, I don't think any amount of protection would probably be enough. But thank you much, Matt. Very fascinating. It gave me the opportunity to do a little checking up on an olive tree.
All right. Well, if people have questions for you about anything that they're curious about, whether it's a tree or something in their lawn or something in their garden, what's the best way to reach you?
Send an email at donald.kinzler@ndsu.edu. And photos are awesome.
Yeah, because Matt really kind of helps. Having a picture to look at really does show us quite a bit about the situation, and also just really what a great job he's done with caring for that plant. And speaking of caring for things, a lot of us try to care for our lawns. This year has been tough. It's been hot. It's been dry. And like we said earlier, normally about this time of the year, we're looking at doing some fertilizing of the lawn to make sure it's got a good base for next year. But you're saying that maybe this year we're going to have to do things a little differently.
Yeah, boy, tough growing season for lawns. And of course, I look at a lawn as kind of the canvas on which the rest of our yard or landscape is featured. So to me, just a stretch of lawn isn't what I'm all about. But the lawn, as long as it's healthy and green, to me that is such a good backdrop for your perennial gardens. Even paths or anything between your gardens. The lawn is just important, and also a lawn does provide oxygen. A green growing patch of lawn, 5 foot by 5 foot, produces enough oxygen for a human for a day. So there's benefit to lawns. But this year, man, what a tough year on lawns. And so if we kind of talk about why fall is important, now it's quite common in the heat of summer for our northern lawns to go dormant. Our northern lawns are called cool season grasses because they like cool temperatures and they like it moist. Then they stay green and growing. And it's quite common during the summertime when moisture gets a little more scarce and temperatures go up, that the lawn will go dormant. And that's a self-preservation mechanism for a grass. It's good that they do that. Good that they don't just die when conditions aren't quite to their suiting. And so that's a good thing. But the problem is when the drought just is extensive. There is a point of no return on lawn grass. It can't stay dormant forever. We learned that especially during the drought of the late 1980s. The extended drought, we all thought, well, okay, lawns will go dormant. That's okay. but the drought persisted, and many of our lawns, including our own, did die. At a certain point, they just almost turn, Dust Bowl fashion and kind of wither away. So we've learned, of course, from some of those experiences that at a certain point, a lawn needs to come out of that dormancy because it can't just remain in that state forever. And so this year, with much of the country, including North Dakota, Minnesota, Montana, much of the South Dakota, much of the area in just severe drought. We this summer, my gosh, June, July, August, we've had such little rain that our own lawn is brown and crunchy. So now, going into fall here, if we talk about our northern lawns, even though they've had some, the dormancy is kind of common. These extended dormancies are not good, as I mentioned. And so coming into fall, we've got an opportunity to save our lawns. Again, we don't want them to do the late 1980s death type thing. And so that's why we're talking about this today. We've got a chance to kind of do something. The fall of the year is typically a time when our lawns re-energize. Even if they've had kind of a short dormancy period, the fall of the year, when the days get shorter, temperatures get a little cooler, evenings get cooler, and we usually get a little more fall rain, and our cool season grasses just re-energize. And a lot of turf research has been done. So in the fall of the year, what the grass is doing, it's putting out extra root growth, so it can go deeper for moisture. And also, this is the time of year when it's tillers out, which is the term for spreading out horizontally. So if you've got kind of gaps or things in the lawn, it fills out. And in addition to doing that, a little more top growth, a little more sideways growth, more root growth, it's going to need nutrition. So that's why all recommendations are to fertilize the lawn around Labor Day. So now, what if your lawn is still crunchy brown from this extended dormancy? What if it's still crunchy brown? Well, if it's crunchy brown, it's not green and growing, and it's not doing what it should be doing in the fall. And that's why when our horticulture and forestry team at NDSU got together recently, Esther McGinnis, we've had her on the podcast. She's one of our horticulture specialists that deals a lot with turf type situations. She indicated too that it's going to be very important this year to bring our lawns out of dormancy, if at all possible, so that they can do their regular fall recovery and growth. If we don't bring our lawns out of dormancy, and if we don't get them green and growing again, and if it goes into winter after that long extended drought dormancy, there's a chance that the lawns might not come back. So we have a window of opportunity now as we're looking towards fall to get our lawns in a healthier state. The other thing, of course, the drought catches all the attention, the lack of rain. But the other factor in this dormancy is the heat. We mentioned cool season grasses. Okay, but we have had hot. So that's what has made this long dormancy in many lawns. That's what has made it so severe also, is no rain, but also hot. We've had a lot of days above 85 and well into the 90s on all of those things. And so, some people have had the means to water, sprinkler system or dragging hoses. Others, many farmsteads, many others, our own lawn included, have just opted to use the water and the vegetables and flowers, and we've allowed our lawns to go dormant, which is okay, but we just keep hoping that some rain is going to keep them from going over the edge and actually dying instead of just being dormant. See, when a lawn is dormant, might look dead, but it's not. There's life in that crown, which is between the grass blade and the root. And so we need to preserve that life in that crown, and that's why the moisture is so important. So that's just kind of the biology of how a lawn kind of goes dormant, which is okay, but at a certain point, it needs to come out of that dormancy. And so the fall of the year is the one thing that's working in our favor. In the fall of the year here, evaporation is less. And so if we do get some rain, or maybe we can supplement that with our own, for example, what if we only get a 1/4 inch of rain? That's not going to be enough to kind of help, but maybe that would be the time to then start sprinkling our lawn, to piggyback on what Mother Nature gives us. And a couple of things that we should do until that lawn comes out of dormancy. We shouldn't be mowing it. If it's brown, crisp, and crunchy, we shouldn't mow it just to kind of freshen it up. I know some people, if there's been weeds down in, they've lowered their mowing height so that they can kind of cut those weeds away, but that's not good. That exposes the lawn even more. So we shouldn't mow until it starts getting green and actively growing again. And of course, until that lawn becomes green and actively growing, we shouldn't fertilize yet. So our next step is going to be to bring the lawn out of dormancy, and then we can start kind of doing some of these healing measures, fertilizing and things such as that.
All right, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, let's talk about how to bring the lawn out of dormancy.
Local news affects your life, giving you the confidence and clarity to make better decisions every day. You can support that with a digital subscription. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to sign up today.
Okay, we're back, and this week we're talking about, with the drought, how to kind of maybe salvage your lawn or get it in good enough shape that you can fertilize so that next spring you'll have an even better lawn. And right before we ended, you said one of the place to start is bringing your lawn out of dormancy. And what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. We don't want our lawns to go into that point of no return. When with extended dormancy, if it goes beyond that point of no return, it's going to be over the edge, and there will be no bringing it back. And so we want to avoid that. And so because the heat and dormancy and drought has been so long, I'm afraid a lot of our lawns might be approaching that. I know our own, I'm concerned. Some of it might be approaching that point of no return. So we want to salvage it, bring it out of dormancy before it goes over the edge like that. So the target date for fall fertilizing, the important date, is around Labor Day, give or take. So when we're talking about here in late August, we need to start bringing that lawn out of dormancy so that we can start then fertilizing to give it the nutrition for recovery. So how do we actually bring a lawn out of dormancy? Okay, well, kind of look at the weather forecast. If there's a good chance of rain, and I wish I had $1 for every good chance of rain they forecasted never came to fruition.
We were supposed to have some kind of winter or some kind of rainstorm.
Yeah, we were supposed to have different rainstorms, and it would never happen. And so if you weren't under the right rain cloud, nothing. So kind of look at the weather forecast. If there's rain coming, and if it actually materializes, that will certainly help. And so what it's going to take to bring a lawn out of dormancy is a good soaking of at least an inch. So rainfall of an inch, or if you are able to start watering, sprinkling, put a tuna can out. A tuna can is about an inch deep. And so run your sprinkler until you've collected an inch. Okay, that's going to be enough to actually penetrate down into the roots. Because our soil is so dry, we need to get moisture down into that root system for recovery. A little bit of sprinkling on the surface isn't going to do it. So an inch rain or sprinkling to get down into that. And we're going to have to do that once or twice a week. 1 inch isn't going to make magic happen. It's not going to make the grass green and growing. So we're going to have to apply an inch, or luckily get an inch of rain over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully then, if we start that now in late August, first part of September, then within a couple of weeks, a week or two, the lawn will start active growth. And we've got a little bit of friend in that this time of year, the days are a little shorter. There's going to be less evaporation. So the rainfall or water that we do apply will go a little farther. Water probably early morning if you can. I mean, if your work schedule is such that you can't water early morning, well then, of course, evening would be better than no water at all. And make sure you're applying enough to go deeply down in, and make sure you're doing that frequently enough, again, once or twice a week. Avoid shallow, light sprinklings that aren't going to go deep enough down in. And hopefully then, within 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll start seeing some green. Now, on our own lawn, out of curiosity, I've been wondering, some of the spots that are so brown and crunchy and just no sign of anything, I've actually started a little kind of 3 foot by 3 foot test section. I can't water the whole lawn like that, but I'm going to soon. If we don't get rain, I'll start watering the whole lawn. But I've been testing that little area to see if I put good moisture on once or twice a week, to see how long does it take to bring that back. Well, it does. It's taking at least a good week and a half before I'm even seeing much at all in there. The cool temperatures are going to happen. So far, it looks like our own lawn is going to be able to come back, which is good. But, during the the rule of thumb is that a lawn can tolerate about 4 to 6 weeks of no moisture at all. But, there have been stretches during our own growing season here, South Fargo, where we've gone that 4 to 6 weeks with no rain. During that period, the lawn needs at least a 1/4 inch. So I'm hoping everybody that's listening, their lawn got at least a 1/4 inch to stay hydrated. Because that's kind of the tipping point, is the 4 to 6 weeks of absolutely no rain. So then we need to get some water on our lawns to bring it out of dormancy. And then once it does come out of dormancy, then we can kind of start seeing where we're at and start preparing then for fertilizing. Now, if the area, if some patches of the lawn absolutely aren't going to come back out of dormancy, they're just remaining brown, we might have to deal with some reseeding in that. But our lawns are resilient. I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that most of us through that time period got enough to keep the lawn at least alive somewhere in there. And so the preferred scenario here is going to be that, okay, the long hot spell will break, that we'll get cooler temperatures. That's going to help, that we start getting some moisture returning. Even if it's not enough, we could add to it a little bit with some of our own sprinkling. So then the grass would respond to the cooler temperatures and moisture by starting to resume growth and green up. Then the roots are going to recover, that it'll make some nice growth, and that will prepare it for winter. So what we should watch for is, as the kind of nights get cooler, the moisture, we'll do some sprinkling, some new growth starts coming in amongst all the brown dead stuff. And then at a certain point, we could actually start mowing again. And so now as the lawn comes out of dormancy, it would be really important not to jump the gun on mowing. But set your mower high, again, the recommended height of 3.5 inches or so, and make sure that as a lawn is coming out of dormancy, that you let it get to that higher height so that it's doing its photosynthesis thing. And so that'll be very, very important too. And keep a good sharp mower blade. That always helps. A ragged cut surface evaporates moisture, loses moisture faster. Okay. So there's actually a good justification for keeping the mower blade sharp, because that good sharp edge will kind of heal better and the grass won't be losing moisture. And we want it to maintain every possibility that it should. And also leave the clippings on the lawn. Many of our lawns, are just so crispy that they could just use a little mulch on there. So letting the clippings filter down in will be a good way to kind of top dress that with a little bit of extra cooling effect also. And so then after the lawn is green and growing, and hopefully that'll be within the next couple of weeks, so that in early September, we can apply the fall fertilizer. And that fertilizer is so important in the fall, in any year. But especially this year, that's going to be important, that fall nutrition given to get the lawn to heal itself back up again. I suspect when our lawns come out of dormancy, such a long dormancy, they're probably going to be kind of a little bit thin and skimpy. And so that fall fertilizer is really going to be quite important. One word also on fall fertilizer. When you shop for fertilizing at Garden Center or the national chains, sometimes you'll see winterizer fertilizer. But now actually the winterizer, the one kind of winterizer, has extra phosphorus in it. Our soils don't usually need that. So the winterizer type fertilizers are actually more for southern type grasses. Okay. So the best thing is if you can still find on the shelf just the regular fertilizer, the same for lawns that you would use in spring. That's good. I can usually find some, maybe it'll be on the back of the shelf somewhere, because the national campaign is just the winterizer, and usually it'll say up in the big banner, winterizer fertilizer. If that's all you can find, that's fine, but we don't need that extra winterizer type. So I just look for the regular lawn fertilizer and go with that. And so always kind of follow the directions on that. This would not be the time to add extra fertilizer. Just use what's on the, follow the label recommendations for your fertilizer setting. We don't want to push it over the edge by adding extra fertilizer. This isn't the time to overfeed. And one thing we should mention too, that if your lawn isn't coming out of dormancy, or if it isn't slow, well, then just skip the fall fertilizing. Or if things are such that you can't water a big lawn or a farmstead lawn, and if it doesn't come out of dormancy, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but don't fertilize. So if the lawn can't come out of it, just skip the fertilizer.
If it's not green, don't
fertilize, because fertilizer won't encourage the grass to come out of dormancy. It could actually burn the roots. Have you ever stuck your hand in maybe you've got a cut or a scratch on your hand and stuck your hand in a bag of fertilizer? It burns. Or even Miracle Grow, the liquid type, if I've gotten that on my hand and I've had a cut, fertilizer can actually burn. And so it can actually burn roots, dormant grass roots, and so that would just be a further stress factor on it. So we don't want to do that. So it's going to be interesting. I wish I had a crystal ball. As to what the rest of the fall is going to be like. Our lawns, are they going to come out of all this okay? It would be very interesting to know. One thing that we should note too, the lawn fertilizer should be done at some point in September.
Okay.
If the lawn recovery is delayed, it's important not to fertilize too late into the fall. So if we got into October, that's getting a little late. The reason for that is if a person fertilizes too late, it can cause a flush of late season growth that doesn't toughen up in time for winter. So you could get more winter dieback, more mold issues, and things such as that. So September is definitely the target date for it. And now most of the lawn fertilizers that we apply are granular types, and the granular types need moisture in order to dissolve and be able to be taken up by the root system. So a key part too is when you do fertilize the lawn, it's going to need moisture too to activate it. So many of us in a typical year around Labor Day, if they're forecasting a rain, you'll see a whole bunch of us out there fertilizing our lawns. To get that lawn fertilizer down before the rain will dissolve the granules, get it down in the root system. Plants can take it up, and everything will be happy as a lark.
So even if if we need to water the lawns to get it green, then we put down the fertilizer, we're still going to need to water. If we're not getting any moisture or any precipitation, we're still going to need to water after we fertilize just to make sure everything gets down in.
Yep, exactly. That water before to bring it out of the dormancy, then fertilizing, and then some water after fertilizing to get it all to work. So this is going to depend on some cooperation from Mother Nature, because there's kind of a limit to what we can do actually. And of course, for any of the lawns that do have patchiness, okay. So say we bring our lawns out of dormancy, but we got some dead spots. Good time to seed that. Fall is a great time. It should be accomplished by about September 15th, because then areas that are seeded or overseeded, that will have time to establish before wintertime. But again, the success of fall seeding depends on moisture. So for seed to germinate, it's going to need kind of continual surface moisture, which usually we have to supply with some extra watering. One option though too is, if that moisture doesn't come, and if we suspect we got dead grass, would be to dormant seed. And that's just seed at some point in November, right before the snow comes, that looks like it's going to stay. We can spread grass seed and the snow will cover it. The spring moisture will get it to germinate. That can be a good option too for some of our damaged lawns.
So I know that that having a brown lawn doesn't mean that it's dead, it's just dormant. But if someone, is there any harm in now overseeding right now and then starting your sprinklers, starting that just to get it all going, to make sure you can get it going, to make sure that you can get in that fertilizer, to do it without Mother Nature, this little part? Just
yes, a person could certainly overseed now, so that when you're watering to bring out of dormancy, I suppose if the lawn was just fine but not dormant, and the water would bring it out of dormancy, I suppose there'd be no need to seed.
Yeah.
But if you suspect that your lawn maybe is going to be quite patchy, then seeding first and then coming on with the water would kind of do double purpose here.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, more with getting our lawn back in shape for next year.
If you're loving this podcast, be sure to check out our full lineup. From news and local politics to sports and true crime, find your next great listen right now at inforum.com/podcasts. That's inforum.com/podcasts.
Okay, so we've been talking about how to bring our lawns back so that we can fertilize, we can have them in good shape for next year, just because it's been so hot, so dry. It's been very tough on our lawns. But as you said earlier, it's been great for weeds. And again, this is the time of the year too when generally it's a good time to spray for weeds, right? To take care of those weeds. Is that still the case right now with the conditions that they've been?
It is. The weeds have thrived. I guess that's what makes them good weeds. They're deeply rooted. They can take moisture out. And, the sneaky kind of disgusting thing about weeds is this summer they really took advantage. As our lawns suffered, the weeds took that advantage to spread. And so many thistles and different types of weeds like that, without the nice competition from green growing grass, they just thrived. The nice thing is we are coming up on one of the main times of year for weed control in our lawns, and that is the fall, even after we've had a little bit of frost. Now, the least successful time to do some weed control is middle of summer here when it's been hot and dry and those weeds are tough. They're just tough and resistant to almost everything, and herbicides applied just aren't as effective. But we're coming up on a wonderful window here to beat some of these weeds. The perennial weeds, such as thistles, quackgrass, dandelions, and many other perennial type weeds, they know, based on the shorter days, they know that winter's coming, and so they're busy storing carbohydrates and other things down into their root system so that they can come back and plague us next spring. So we have this wonderful opportunity. If this time of year in the fall, even as frost approaches, those weeds, since they're carrying things down into their root system, if we apply herbicide, they carry it more effectively down into their root system than at any other time of year. And so we can kind of beat these weeds at their own game by using this window of opportunity. So late August is still a little bit early, early September, maybe a little early for weed control yet. But as the days become even a little cooler, and as frost approaches, that's the time to do the weed control. And now it's important, especially on a dormant lawn, until it comes out of dormancy, not to blanket a dormant lawn with herbicide, because that can cause additional stress and burning on it. But instead, and of course this is good advice any time of year on a lawn, spot spray. So instead of a weed and feed type product that blankets the whole lawn, where usually the lawn is not a blanket of weeds, but you've got one here and there. So it's a great time of year in the fall here, or any time, to just spot spray. So I wander around our yard with our little 2-gallon pump sprayer, and I just spritz where the weeds are and don't spray where there's no weeds. Most herbicides are not preventative. They kill a weed that's already growing. So I walk around our yard and spritz the dandelion here and a thistle there, and that works quite effectively. And so again, big advocate of spot spraying. Make sure that the product you're using, follow the label very carefully on the mixing of it, and make sure on the lawn that it is for a lawn as such. I should mention too that occasionally someone will know someone that knew a farmer that used very successfully killing thistle on a pasture, and so they gave him a little jar of something, and each year we get reports of damage from lawns that where an herbicide was used that was meant for farm type use. And when I researched some of those products, the label says specifically, do not use on residential lawns. So even though a very effective farm type fertilizer might be great on thistles, it does not mean it's to be used on a lawn. And so the label is actually a legal document. So make sure that whatever you're using is labeled for lawn use.
Now, we've talked about in past about having some, if you're using a sprayer, there could be some drifting. You don't want it to drift onto plants. What kind of like, how do you approach that? Something that may be a little bit closer. You've talked in the past sometimes about using a little eyedropper on certain things for real targeted things. Is that what are your thoughts on that? How do we approach maybe thistle that's close to like a flower garden or a vegetable garden?
Yes, boy, and you kind of it's as though you can see our own yard, because I have some thistles that are growing next to some roses and perennials. So in addition to a good time to address lawn weeds, it's also a good time to address weeds in a perennial garden or your landscape. And so drift is always a concern. In fact, a pump type sprayer can, if you have it set so it's sending out too much of a mist, you can get a lot of little droplets that have collateral damage onto things where you don't want that damage to occur, such as on my roses. And so a person needs to use either a very coarse spray Coarse meaning it's large water droplets that aren't going to give a lot of fine misty type droplets around. But I've found when it's close to perennials or shrubs, I'll use an eyedropper or dishwashing detergent bottle with some weed killer put in, and then very carefully just apply that herbicide to the weed you're trying to kill. And so sometimes I will, with a Canada thistle, I will cut off that thistle at about ground level and with an eyedropper or a detergent bottle, squirt a little bit of that herbicide directly on that cut surface. That can work quite effectively also. Also, if you have weedy tree seedlings coming up, right now I have an elm tree growing right next to our aronia shrub. And boy, that elm tree popped up, seems like overnight. And so to get that out of there, it's going to be impossible to pull it or dig it. So I'm going to cut that off at ground level and squirt a little bit of herbicide on that freshly cut surface. And that will protect any of the plants around. So be very careful with any type of sprayer for the little invisible droplets that would go. So that's why oftentimes just targeting with detergent bottle or an eyedropper.
Even when you're doing that kind of a precision work with an eyedropper or a detergent bottle, is there some products that you want to avoid? Because I think we've talked about in the past that some things can really take it into the system, and because their roots will flare out into the ground, maybe it'll leach out, and even if you're being very, very protective and cautionary, just a little drop could really damage that soil around there. Are there things that we should avoid?
Yes. Well, glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in original Roundup, it's not in the consumer type Roundup anymore, but there are some equally concerning active ingredients in the Roundup. And when I say concerning, concern that it doesn't go where we don't want it to go. Now, glyphosate has many very useful, many great uses. But one thing that research has found is that when glyphosate is applied to thistles, for example, the thistle roots, since they are so widespread under soil surface, the thistle roots, which could be intertwined among, for example, my rose bush, glyphosate applied to the thistle moves wonderfully through that thistle system, killing it. But in the meantime, those thistle roots can exude that product and get it onto the roots of my rose bush. And so for many of the weeds such as that, if they're in and amongst other things, I prefer just simply 2,4-D. And 2,4-D comes in two different forms. The 2,4-D amine, A-M-I-N-E, amine is a less volatile. It's also sold as 2,4-D ester. The ester is more volatile, more apt to vaporize and go where you don't want it to be. Now, farm supply stores will sell just plain 2,4-D or look for it in another product as well. And so for many things, the 2,4-D I found is less likely to be exuded out through the root system, for example, as a thistle. 2,4-D maybe doesn't kill thistles quite as effectively, but if it's along with other plants, it's maybe a safer option.
So getting back to the lawn, we took a little weed detour there, but getting back to the lawn and watering again, if we water our lawn to get it back into shape so that we can put down some fertilizer, but even if we're still not getting that inch, every couple of weeks, how late in the year should we be watering?
Well, typically our soils in the northern tier states here, somewhere in November, early November, it varies year to year, but usually during the first half of November, our soil will freeze to a point where you can't get a shovel in any longer, or when moisture comes down, it's not going to penetrate down in. So before that happens, before soil freezes, it is important to have moisture down in that turf profile so that it goes into winter hydrated. So that means that during October, we need to get some good rains so that we get moisture down in the soil so that it's the grass is well hydrated before it goes into its winter dormancy. So what we don't want is for the lawn to go from a long summer dormancy into the winter cold dormancy and then expect it to come back out next spring. So this is going to be a very interesting time.
Now, with fall, again, hopefully we can get our grass green again. But with fall, something comes and covers up that green grass, and that's leaves. Do we do anything different with leaves this year because it's just been so dry?
It's always been advised to, instead of raking off your leaves on the lawn, just crunch them up, mulch them up with the lawnmower, and send that good product back down into the turf profile. And so this year, of course, we're going to have leaves as normal dropping off the trees. And the preferred would be that the lawns will come out of dormancy, turn green, the leaves will fall, and we can go over the leaves with our mulching mower and send that back down in. Now, if the crunched up leaves won't go down into the profile, for example, sometimes leaves will be a little deeper in one area, they blue clear another area. So before you do that operation, kind of rake them out, fan the leaves out so that they're kind of covering all the areas. And when you're all done going over them, maybe a time or two, different directions, the leaf mulch should be down in so that you can see the grass. And what that does is it provides almost like a top dressing. You're kind of giving a good composty type material down into the turf profile. That'll release nutrients. It will help shade the roots for next year, and good things happen. It helps depress weed growth. So research has shown that mulching the leaves down in really does help. So now, what if an area lawn didn't get rain? We weren't able to water that lawn, but still the leaves are going to come down off. I would still mulch them up. Don't set the mower low so that you're scalping a lawn, but keep it at your regular upper height. If a lawn is still dormant, you're probably not going to be cutting down into the grass, but you will be mulching it. And I think there'd be nothing but good that would come from mulching that. But I am really knocking on wood that even our dormant grasses, I hope they're going to come through. But in the meantime, we might need to help it come through.
Yeah, we have some work ahead of us to make sure that our lawns are in good shape for next year.
Yeah, some of our water bills might see an increase, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, Don, thanks a lot. This has been really, really enlightening because, like I said, this is a unique year. We're in quite a situation now, so hopefully this helps people. It's helped myself. Now I've got a game plan for how to address my lawn.
Yep, and as I always say, we're all in this together, so I'm going to be doing the same thing. I need to bring our lawn out of dormancy too, because again, I kind of depend on our lawn as being that backdrop for much of the rest of our landscape and perennials, so I want it to remain healthy.
Well, if people have questions for you about their lawn or weeds or vegetables or trees, anything, what's the best way to reach you?
Or share your photos of your olive tree.
Yeah.
And send an email, donald.kinzler@ndsu.edu.
All right, Don. Well, thanks again for coming in this week.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, for listening.